For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't trying to grow, then it's done for you. For the record, lab on me going all the way. For the record, ain't trying to link, no time to waste. For the record, 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 I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable.
Welcome back to my part 2 chat with LSD kingpin Seth Ferrante, author and filmmaker. Let's pick it up from where Seth is about to go to jail, so instead he runs away and tries to fake his own death.
Yeah, sometimes I would get struck by like the headline on the Metro, and I remember they would say like, you know, so and so whoever commits suicide at Great Falls by jumping in the water.
Yeah.
So over the years, I'd seen this headline probably, you know, half a dozen times, you know, so this stuck in my mind. And then when I was thinking like, I need to leave, I need to disappear, you know, I need to make it so Seth Ferrante doesn't exist, you know, I started formulating this plan, you know, and the plan was basically, I'm going to fake my suicide. You know, I knew people fake their suicide. It was a national park called Great Falls. And at the national park, what they have like this raging river, right? It's like a raging river. There's like all these rocks, and it's actually kayakers kayak there, but only it's what they call class 5 rappers. So
Yeah.
only like professional kayakers kayak there. You
Rushing
know,
white
like,
water, really
anybody.
intense. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like but the professionals would go there, you know, like the expert kayakers, and sometimes they might even get hurt. But I remembered, you know, at that moment when I was kind of, you know, I really, really wanted to disappear. I just wanted to fuck off and get out of there and not have to face all this bullshit that I was looking at. And I remembered, you know, seeing people commit suicide here. So, you know, I actually drove up there, you know, and I kind of checked it out. And I was like, man, and the whole time, you know, my mind's ticking, and I start formulating this plan. And so that's what I did. I staged my suicide. You know, I went there, like I threw some clothes in the water. I even went so far as to like, you know, and to be honest, I mean, I was like, you know, I want to get blood on my clothes, you know,
Yeah.
so if they found my clothes for the DNA. So I was too big of a pussy to like cut myself or something and get like blood from my
I was
arm.
going to
So
ask you this. I was going to ask you this because I did see that you use the floss and just cut into your gums, and I thought, what the fuck are you doing, man? There's other ways you can get blood out.
Yeah.
That'd be so painful, like just walting gums, you know, like fuck.
Yeah, that's what I did. I flossed my teeth really hard, and then I would put like my clothes up like this and rub my blood on it.
Yeah.
And yeah, because that's for real. I mean, I couldn't have cut myself. I was too big a pussy to cut myself, man. You know, and so like I throw those clothes in, and then you know, I got somebody, you know, my godbrother came and he drove me to the airport, and I flew to LA. And actually I'm in LA, and I'm actually reading the papers, right? I'm reading the Washington Post, and I'm looking at the Metro section, you know, because I want to see, you know, that my ruse worked.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm reading it. At first it says like Fairfax County LSD kingpin, you know, commits suicide. So that's the first headline I see. And I'm like, fuck yeah. I'm like, yeah, my shit fucking worked. I'm like, you know, because I'm thinking, you know, after 7 years, you know, like I can be declared legally dead. You know, if they never find a body or whatever, I'm like 7 years, you know,
You
they
don't
I
exist.
can be declared legally dead.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then Seth Ferrante's dead. So if Seth Ferrante's dead, there's no fucking case. You know what I'm saying? So I'm basically off the hook. So at first I'm like, fuck yeah. But then, you know, I keep checking the fucking Washington Post, you know, and back then you had to go to the newsstand. So I'm going to the newsstand every day, and I'm fucking buying the fucking Washington Post. I'm in LA, and I'm fucking ripping it open, and I'm fucking reading the fucking, looking for any news on me. And then, yeah, it sucked because after 2 weeks, it said, you know, that the park rangers, you know, it said the headline after 2 weeks, it was like the U.S. Attorney's Office is like, prosecutors say LSD kingpin suicide is a hoax. And I was like, what? So I went from like elation, you know, that I got this plan
Yeah.
to like deflated in like 2 weeks, right? And so I'm fucking reading the article. I'm like, what the fuck? How's it a hoax? I'm like, what the fuck? They said, you know, they went for it. So then I start reading it, and it said, you know, the park rangers, the U.S. park rangers, it said they dragged the river for 2 weeks and they didn't find a body, you know, and what they said is normally in that area where I staged my suicide, where I made it seem like I jumped in, there was these dams, that calmed the water down before the bridges going into DC from Northern Virginia. So, I read this and I'm like, then, I'm like, it's another classic case. Like I say, I mean, I was always a smart guy, but at the same time, I was a young kid, so I was incredibly naive in a lot of ways. And that was a perfect example, because after I read that article, I was like, man, fuck. I committed my suicide on the wrong side of the fucking dam.
Oh, fuck. All that effort,
So
and here you are, and it was,
I
oh,
had
no.
the perfect plan. I just fucking
Oh, wow.
did it like, fucking like a half a mile in the wrong place.
Oh, dear.
Yeah, I didn't even think about that. I didn't even fucking make that fucking calculation. Like you said, that was like a severe miscalculation on my
Yeah,
part. So
yeah.
like I say, I always tell people, yeah, I was smart, but in a lot of ways I was like fucking, really, really naive, due
Was it
to my youth or whatever.
was it the reality right there and then that you are in the top most wanted criminals in the States and you are going to get fucking caught?
Yeah, no, I didn't even know I was like a top 15 most wanted until I got caught, right? So
Okay. So you weren't
yeah,
you didn't have this knowledge that, you were being hunted other than the
because
fact that you failed to appear.
yeah, because I was the type of dude like anytime I do something, like I do a lot of research, like if I want to learn about this or I want to learn about that, I read as many books as I can,
Yeah.
because I like to read the books to see how other people do it, but then I like to take all everything they did and then I formulate my own plan like based on what other people did or the knowledge that they're given.
Sure.
So at this time, I was watching like all like America's Most Wanted, like cops, everything I could watch, about, people on the law, people being fugitives, people on the lam. I was watching like how long it takes them to match up prints. And I was watching this stuff like religiously, like every day. Right. And I see all the people on these shows are like, they're like violent felons, they
Mm.
got like, or serial fucking killers or fucking rapists and shit.
Yeah.
And so I'm thinking, I'm like, man, I'm like, I'm good, man. I'm like, I'm not none of these. You know
Yeah,
what
I
I'm
don't
saying? I'm
fall
just like
into
a
this
little
bad guy
fucking, yeah.
sort of
Yeah, I'm like a fucking
yeah.
weed and acid dealer, man. I sold fucking weed and acid in fucking colleges, man. I'm like, I got no violence, I got nothing. So, I'm not a fucking gangster. I'm just this fucking kid who fucking thinks he's a fucking, counterculture fucking outlaw. So,
So
I'm like, man,
paranoia hadn't kicked in for you at all at that stage of what if?
no, I mean, paranoid, played a part. I mean, I would have sometimes when I was in LA where, I would think people, were following me. And one time, when I left, I already had fake ID and different names, right? But what I kept my, because my dad was in the military, right? So I kept my military ID so I could go on like bases, right?
Right, okay.
Yeah, so I kept my military ID, right? Because when I first went out there, one of the girls I stayed with, she lived on a military base with her father. Her father was actually like the XO, which is like the second in command of the military base. So I actually stayed with her for like 3 months. So, I kept that so I could have access on and off the base,
So you can
without having to be with her.
as a family member, Seth, you have that opportunity if your father or mother is part of the military that you can
Yeah.
access or get access to campus.
Yeah, so it's only till like you're like 21, but I still had the
Oh, okay.
ID and the ID was good. So, but when I started getting paranoid, right? Like after I stayed with her for a while, and then I moved down to LA and Hollywood, and when I started getting paranoid one time, like I actually took like that ID because that ID was like the only thing that had my real ID on my real name, that military ID. And I actually took it, and I remember like I was cutting it up, and I walked out, and I like threw it down the drain, and I was actually like looking all around me, seeing if anybody was following me, to see what I was doing.
Yeah.
And that's like when the paranoia would kick in, and I would say for probably the first 6 months, I was kind of paranoid because I mean, when something happens like that to you, and especially with the feds and like, everybody snitches on you and you just think like the feds, like they know everything, like they're omnipotent, they're like omnipresent. So, and like I say, my whole castle kind of crumbled and I was kind of shell of my former self. And, and I was always looking over my shoulder thinking somebody was following me or they were gonna, be around the corner, they're gonna figure out where I was. And it lasted for about 6 months and then, I kind of was like, well, I guess these motherfuckers don't know where I am, so I started kind of getting my mojo back, but yeah, the first 6 months, man, I was kind of really paranoid, looking over my shoulder. Really, it was more because I was just kind of, it took me 6 months. Like I was shook from the whole thing, that whole, everything had happened to me, it like really shook me up, and like it destroyed my, confidence, my self-esteem, everything, because I thought I was like this super smart dude. And then something like that happens to you and your whole world crumbles. And then I was like, fuck, maybe I'm not as smart as I think I am.
Were you just living on
Maybe.
what money you had made? Because obviously, you're going from knowing that you've got X amount of dollars coming in constantly. You're not too fazed about what you're spending and stuff like that. Here you are on the run, basically living with what you've got. Because it's not like you'll be able to run your network from where you were doing what you were doing, huh?
No, no, I wasn't selling any drugs, and actually, like the money that I brought with me, it only lasted for about 6 months because
Yeah.
I was actually still spending money like I was a drug dealer, and I wasn't. So after 6 months, the first 6 months of being a fugitive, um, I actually had to go. I had to leave LA and I had to go to Texas, because I had a weed connect in Texas. So I actually went back there, and I had to basically, and he knew I had some problems, but he was a Mexican dude, so he didn't know like the extent,
Yeah.
that I had a federal case or anything. So I actually went back to him, and basically I had to ask him for like some money and to front me some weed, and so he gave me a little money, and so I could take care of myself there. And I started getting some weed from him. And I fell in like with a restaurant crowd, like a bunch of, cooks and waiters and waitresses, because it's like a party crowd, almost like college crowd. They like to party too. So I start selling, weed to kind of the restaurant crowd. But
I think we call that
anybody.
hospitality industry here.
Yeah, yeah. So, and they all, they would party. So I sell them weed. But, selling weed in Texas wasn't very lucrative, because there was a lot of, there's a lot of weed in Texas. It's right by the border. So you can't sell it for a lot. So it's not very lucrative. So what I was actually looking for, I was trying to meet somebody down there that was from somewhere else, like north, because I knew I had to connect to get weed. I
Yeah,
just
you're
needed
moving up.
somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I knew that's how you make money. You get weed somewhere and you take it somewhere,
Yeah.
where the weed's not. So I finally met this dude named Jeff who was a cook at the restaurant, you know, that I was fucking selling a lot of weed at. And one time he told me, he's like, "Hey man," he's like, I'm from St. Louis. I'm gonna go up to St. Louis this weekend, to visit my parents and visit some friends and stuff. And I was like, "Oh," he's like, "You want to come up, man? We'll go party and shit." And I was like, "Yeah." I was like, "Man," I go, people, can you sell weed up there? People that buy weed?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, I probably know a few people, that'll buy some stuff." So, so what I did is I grabbed like 20 pounds from the Mexican dude, my connect, right? And I was like, fuck it, let's go. So we drive up in his fucking truck, and we stay there for like a weekend, and he introduced, and I met some people, and I didn't even sell all the weed. I ended up taking the weed back, you know what I'm saying?
Oh,
The
shit.
majority of the majority of the weed I brought back because I couldn't sell it all. But I sold some and I made some contacts. So then what I did, I started taking the train up there, and I started kind of, cultivating these contacts that I had, and I kind of plugged them in, and I'd be like, boom, here, man, fucking sell this shit. I'll give it you this price. You can make money, And anybody, it's like any business. I've always gone with the premise, like for a business, like, you can build, you don't necessarily have to find people that have the cash. You can find people that know a lot of people that are in the party scene. And if they're smart guys, you can basically build them up and make them into drug dealers.
Yeah.
And you do this by giving them, a steady stream of supply at a good price.
And they
And then they
create
can
that
beat,
network, which would
yeah,
then obviously grow.
and then they can beat everybody else's price, because that's what I would do. I'd come up, I'd be like, how much is this going for? How much is this going for? And they tell me, and I'd be like, well, shit, I can get you that for this,
Yeah.
and I would just undercut the fucking price, you know what I'm saying? And I would start, developing dudes. So this going from Dallas to St. Louis kind of started like my second, little empire while I was a fugitive. And,
How long were
I
you on the
started
run
getting
for,
my
Seth?
2 years.
So, yeah, 2 years is a long time when you're on the run
Yeah.
and you literally got no money in your pocket. So,
Yeah. So, after 6 months, I was doing this for, this Dallas to St. Louis thing for about 18 months. And, it took me about 6 months to build it back up. But then, after about 6 months, after I'd been a fugitive for about a year, I kind of started rolling again. I had money coming. I was kind of getting my mojo back. I had funds where, I could rent this house, or I could rent that house. I could do different stuff. And plus I could afford, because like at the time, look, I never had a car. I had driver's licenses, and a whole bunch of different names, but usually like my thing was like I would find different girls, and if I needed to do something, I would just get them to rent cars, and then I would get them to drive,
Yeah.
to do whatever I needed to do, and I would just be like, boom, yeah, like we're going on a trip and I'm paying for the trip, but really I'm smuggling drugs, but a lot of times I would do it on the train by myself too, and I would just get like I would just, grab like 40 or 50 pounds, and I would get like a sleeper car. I would have like my own little,
Little cabin.
sleeper car on the
Yeah,
train. Yeah.
Did you think at all at this
Yeah.
stage, going on, coming up to that 2-year mark, that you could have possibly slipped through? That they may not be sort of so adamant about finding you?
No, I mean, I was, yeah, because I had no idea I was top 15. So, I was thinking like, I was young too. So I was thinking like, yeah, I could do this for the rest of my life. I was thinking just like, because, when I got busted, they took like my life away from me, at that point. That's why, like, selling drugs, that was my life, having money and being the guy, like, I thought of myself, like to me, I was like a rock star.
Oh,
You know what I'm
absolutely.
saying? That's the way I was living. So, they took that away from me. So then when they took that away from me, I was doing all I could to get that back.
How was
So
it
then when
when
I
you
start,
were arrested, though? Like, you literally, once again, your world
yeah,
falls
I mean,
apart.
yeah, same thing. Yeah, like
Like,
in
fuck.
2 years, yeah.
You go from,
And it
that initial of shit, we're going down, shit's happening, and then all of a sudden you make the break, you get away, you're living away, you're doing your thing again, and then fucking boom again.
yeah, the second time I got busted though, when I got busted in St. Louis, and I got caught and found out I was a federal fugitive, top 15 and all that. It was weird because I was actually almost kind of relieved, because because I didn't, I had literally had, dude, I had like 15 different IDs, right?
Yeah.
And I would literally, like, different days, I would like get an ID out, and I would like quiz myself. I'd be like, whatever name, I'd be like, okay, today my name is Christopher Michael Lynette. I live at such and such. My social security is such and such. And I would like do that. I have to like get in, and
Memorize
I'd
it.
have to learn that
Yep.
in case I got pulled over or something. You know what I'm saying?
And be
In
confident
case,
too.
yeah. So, and I went with the premise, right? As long as I had a piece of paper to back me up, I could be whoever I wanted to be, as long as I could spit it out, verbatim like that. So, I would always be like, it was like some cloak and dagger shit, it was like almost like some James Bond type shit, like Mission Impossible or whatever. And I would literally, I'd be like, okay, this is who I am today. And I would say all the information to myself like 5 times real quick, and I would just lock it in my brain. And like I say, at first, that stuff can be cool, and you can be like you're playing like James Bond, but eventually it starts getting old,
Fucks with your
because
head, brother.
yeah,
I
yeah,
did it for 6 years, and to be
yeah,
honest with you, I won't. No one likes to be caught, especially in certain ways that you get caught. For me, it was nighttime. I swear to God, to this day, I still don't know where they come from. There was no trees. There was no, man. I had fucking 50 fucking gorillas just jump out. AKs, like, it was just gnarly. You know what I mean? And I still to this day go, where the fuck did these guys come from? But they're saying, we've got you. You're looking at 25. We've been watching. You think I are. We'll wait for the police brief. Keep your mouth shut. Just go with the flow. And then, you realise, okay, so they had you off for this period of time, and there's only that much evidence, and there's only this and that, and whatever. Okay, cool, you got me. But that feeling of knowing that it's over, I don't know. Like, for me, it was you could either end up dead doing life, or be grateful that you're just looking at 10 years or whatever it was to start with, and then just go, well, I got a chance to make something of my life here if I want to, or I'm going to end up in one or two places here for life or death. They're the realities.
yeah. No, like I said, I was relieved, man, because I was just getting old, like keeping up with all the different storylines, because depending on where I was, and what idea I had, or even like what girl I was with, or what group of friends I was with. It was like a different story, man.
So
I had to keep all these.
you play that ID with that particular female. So every woman possibly could know a different you.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
You know what I'm saying? Yeah.
Yeah.
So because I would switch IDs depending on where I was, what state I was in, or even what group of people I was messing with. Yeah. So I was like kind of relieved when I was caught, and then like too, I was kind of, I've always been kind of mommy's boy, right? So I mean, when that was like, like a real emotional moment for me. Like, I was in jail and everything, but I could like finally call. I didn't talk to my mom for like 2 years,
Wow.
you know? So I could finally like call my mom and be like, hey, and I could just be like Seth Ferrante again. So it was like, it was kind of relief. I knew I was looking at a lot of time, and I knew, the light was real far away down in the tunnel. But at the same time, like, like you just said, like the mental, like it was wearing on me mentally. You know what I'm saying? I mean, I was trying to, play the rock star role and it's all good and dandy, but really, just having, I'm a real transparent dude, I'm a
Yeah.
real honest dude. So just having to lie to people all the time, was kind of eating away at me.
I think the thing is, Seth, too, the fact is you got to keep backing your lie up with another lie and another lie and another lie. And I mean, at the end of the day, when you're doing that constantly, every day under a different alias, and trying to, create a different story, then you got to remember that story down the track when you bump that person again under that identity. And, if you're doing business, people are going to pick it. People are going to say, dude, aren't you fucking so-and-so? Didn't this happen? Aren't you meant to be there? And then go, oh, fuck, like, there's no room for error.
Yeah, not at all.
There's no room for error there.
Yeah.
You're a young white fella in jail, looking at it a long time.
Yeah, when I first went into prison, because all the federal prison, they were just locking up all the crack dealers, and all the crack dealers were like, black dudes from the inner city. So the first prison I went to was FCI Manchester in Kentucky, and it was a medium high, what they used to call them like gladiator schools, like, like you had to fight. If you didn't fight, your own people wouldn't even look out for you,
Yeah.
But when I went in, it was 75%, black,
Yeah.
because from all the crack stuff, right? And so, then it's maybe like, 10% Mexican, 15% white. So, even like you're going in and your own people are looking at you, they're like, does this dude got heart? And they do stuff like they call it a heart check, like they'll even watch you. They'll, because when you go into, especially as a young white kid, like the other races, like they press up on you. They see what you're about. They see if you can handle your own or not. And basically your own people, they watch to see how you react. That's why they call it a heart check. So, like if the dudes press up on you and you don't do anything, or you try to be nice to them, or because in prison it's like different things. Dudes try to play you. Like the first off, they're like, "Hey man, you go in the store, buy me an ice cream." Okay, yeah, next week, give me a carton of cigarettes.
Yeah.
Then 2 weeks later, oh here's a list.
Yeah.
And the next thing is they're gonna come and try to fucking rape you.
Yeah.
So it's not like, people on the outside, they think it's like this, you just go in prison and somebody, rape. I mean, it doesn't happen. It's like gradual. People, they do it by increments. That's how they do it. And the whole time, your own race is like looking at you, like, is this dude worthy? Should we help this dude? Is this dude worth helping?
Did you know, Seth, you were looking
So,
at double figures, bro?
I mean, I didn't at first,
No.
because even when I mean, I know I was looking at probably 10 years, but when I got locked up and I got caught, and that's when I started learning more about like the mandatory minimums and the sentencing guidelines. And like, even like my lawyers were like from the 80s, so they were thinking like, even my federal lawyer, they're like, oh no, you're, good white kid, from a good family, you might get like, 10 years or something. They weren't even hip to the new laws, at this time, because these new laws had just started like 88. So a lot of the lawyers weren't even hip. They were thinking like the feds, it was like the 80s. Like they were thinking like, the color of my skin or my background or my upbringing was gonna, get the judge to cut me some slack.
Yeah,
But
no.
this time the judges couldn't cut any slack because they had the sentencing guidelines. It was like a rotating schedule,
Yep.
like a rotating, thing. So like you had to go down this one column, and I had a CCE charge, so that was like level 40. And then right here, I only had like my criminal history category was only like 1, because I was first time nonviolent offender. But that's what the judge did. He goes, okay, 40 on this side, 1 on this side, and then he just goes down the sliding scale. Oh, there's my time. My time was like, 292 months. That's what I got, sentenced to. So, even like when I got sentenced, it was crazy because when I got sentenced, right? Like they said how much I got sentenced to, and I was thinking, I was like, oh, 292 months. I was like, that ain't that bad. And then I started thinking, I was like, wait,
25 years.
12, 12,
Yeah.
12, 12, 12, 12. And I didn't even get to 10. And I was like, fuck.
Yeah.
And then like I say, when you go into prison, like I say, I mean, I was in the gladiator school. So, like you had to fight. Like, look, I mean, you probably can't see right here, but my nose has been broken like 5 times.
Hang on a sec. I'll just
You know what I'm saying?
coming into the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My nose, I got a deviated septum on one side. I can barely even breathe out of this side of my nose because my nose been smashed so many times. Fighting.
I had to get rhino turbine plasty and straighten mine up as well. Surgery.
Because see, look, I'm always been an athletic dude, and and like I say, I can get busy, but I'm not a boxer, right? I'm a wrestler.
Okay.
So every time I would get in a fight, I would have to take punches, to even get close. But I'm pretty athletic dude, so I'm a pretty good, and I wrestled like in junior high and high school, so I know how to wrestle and stuff. But and there a lot of people are throwing fists, so it's like I don't throw fists. I'm not a boxer, so I would always have to get close to people. So usually dudes could tag me a couple of times before I got them, but usually when I got them, I could choke them out or something or lock them up.
I think the crazy thing is too, Seth, for those out there that don't really understand that mindset of somebody who's just been given a sentence like that, I know, look, I ended up with 6, but they were starting me at 10 years. My mindset was, it is what it is. As much as I was devastated, you got to put your head in the game, and that game is in those 4 walls. In those 4 walls,
you gotta man up.
Everybody is vulnerable. It don't matter who the fuck you are. It don't matter where you're from, how much money you got. You are vulnerable at any stage. You got 25 years. You're a young, white, more young man. How was that, brother? And where was your mindset at then? Was it just like kill or be killed?
I wouldn't say it was that extreme. I mean, I was scared. I was cautious, but it's not like I was trembling or showing that on the outside. I mean, what you feel on the inside and what you show on the outside are 2 different things. But I knew what I did. Like, you heard me say earlier, like any situation I want to learn about or anything I want to research. I do a lot of research. I'm a real academic type of dude. So right when I got locked up, I'm talking to my mom, and I'm getting my mom to like order me like all these like classic, prison books, right?
Yeah.
So I'm getting like, In the Belly of the Beast by Jack Henry Abick, Soledad Brother by George Jackson, Live from Death Row from Amir Abdul-Jamal, and I'm getting like different books like this, about dudes that have been in prison and did time, because I'm using these books these are like my college courses.
Yeah, okay.
On how to do time.
Yep.
So my first 2 years, I just kind of stayed out of the way. I stayed quiet, and I read these books to kind of, I watched people and I read these books to kind of, adopt my persona in there. Because like when you're in there, like basically you got to get a mask, man. You put a fucking mask on.
Yeah.
And you wear, every time you step out of the fucking cell, you got this fucking mask on. It's not a literal mask, it's a figurative mask. But you got this mask on, you got this persona. So my persona that I developed, I was like the fucking crazy white boy, like you didn't want to fuck with.
Which is not a bad thing if you're able to stamp that. I think the thing is, and if I can just ask you too, because in Australia our system's a lot different to America. I still don't completely understand how your sentencing indications and where you go to prison there, but I am aware that the federal system is predominantly lifers, isn't it? And massive sort of crimes, and it is an extremely dangerous environment.
Yeah, but see, that's the thing too, because that's like if you go to the penitentiaries, that's like the height of maxes.
Can you just explain that for us, the state and the federal?
Yeah, so look, well, the federal, you got like Supermax, right? That's like the worst of the worst, and that's like only like one prison, the one in It's it's in Colorado. It's a federal supermax, right? Then you got what they call the USPs, the United States Penitentiaries, and there's a bunch of them, and that's where all the lifers go, right?
Okay.
And what they say in the USPs, that's like the highs. They say boys fight, men kill.
Yeah,
Like
right.
you don't get it in the highs, you don't get in no fist fight. There's not no fist
You just
fights.
get
If you got a
spiked
beef with
straight away.
someone, and they're not just gonna stab you like 2 or 3 times. They're gonna stab you like 60 times.
You're going to be
Like they're
dead.
trying to kill. Yeah, they're trying to kill you. You know, those are the dudes with life. They don't fuck around. Then you got the medium highs where I was at. You know, they call it they're like the SCIs, a federal correctional. USP stands for United States Penitentiary. The SCI stands for Federal Correctional Institution. So that's like the mediums. They call those gladiator schools because you don't see a lot of dudes with life there. You know, you might see one every now and then, like if they did 20 years in the feds and their level might drop, but you don't see a lot of dudes with life there. But you see a lot of young kids with a lot of time, and you see dudes with lesser time, like 5, 10 years. But it's basically they call it gladiator school because it's a lot of fights.
Yeah.
People get stabbed, but people aren't, they're not stabbing dudes like 50 or 60 times. They just might like poke dudes. Like they say they poke dudes like 2 or 3 times. They got a lot of fights with like locks and socks. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Or even like they might grab like, mop ringer or shit like that. So, a lot of gangs. So it's basically almost like a proving ground.
Is that where a lot of the
You know?
gang activity is in that sort of part of prison life?
Yeah, I mean those and the highs, but it's almost like young kids come in with a lot of time, and then they start proving themselves in the gladiator schools, and then they become like a tough dude, and then they got to stab somebody or something, and then they graduate to the USP.
Yeah, then they end up doing life.
Yeah, they might get life or whatever, but some dudes, like a lot of dudes, because in prison too, the dudes got like a lot of twisted sense of fucking reality.
Yeah.
The honor, the honor in there and all the tributes in there are twisted. So like a lot of dudes, like they have the attitude like, fuck that, I'm going to the penitentiary. So they're gonna go fucking smash somebody or smash a cop or something. So they end up because they want to be with the big boys. I mean, see, I never had that attitude. I was like, I didn't want to go to the penitentiary. Not that I was scared, but I knew I was getting out. I was trying to do everything I could for my future. So I did 12 years in the mediums. My first 12 years, I was in 4 different mediums, right? So I did 12 years, and then my level dropped, and I went to a low because I didn't get in trouble. So the low security prison, I did 9 years in lows. The low security prison is like, where they put like a lot of the snitches or rats because they can't survive, or like dudes. Dudes can work themselves down from the penitentiaries down
It's
to the
like
low.
what we call here, Seth, is we have our supermax, then we have our ABs, A1s, A2s, extremes, and your escapees. Then you go down and you have that, which what you're talking about, which is a C classo. So a C1, C2, C3. C2s is your trusted sort of a sort of dorm environment. You're not completely locked into cells, just locked into a wing.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah,
you're
same
working.
thing.
Yeah, it's a working sort of environment. You're a little bit of normality, and then you see through, you start to progress to maybe some work release and migrating back into the community. For you, I think the interesting point that I actually picked up on in some stuff that I actually read about you was the way that you were able to, I guess, hold yourself around the different nationalities and the different gangs, especially, I guess, in that 12 years, because that could have been so bad for you or anybody else. 12 years is a long time to survive in that environment. You were able to, be accepted by more than one crew and respected, weren't you?
Yeah, see, I think, I mean, first off, I was lucky in some ways too. Like it goes back to that, being at the right place at the right time. So when I first went to FCI Manchester, I'm 22. I got 25 years. I basically look like a little college kid.
Yeah.
People are looking at me like, how the fuck you got 25 years, right? But I grew up in California. So even though I'm Kentucky, so right when you hit the compound, people are like, where are you from? Where are you from? I'm like, I'm from Cali. So they're like, okay, we're gonna go get your homeboys. So my only homeboys from Cali were like the Mexican Sereno gangbangers. You know what I'm saying? Like this, they call them the Southsiders. And there's only about maybe 6 or 7 on the compound, right?
Really?
But the Southsiders, like they're known you know, like the Mexican mafia. That's like the Mexican mafia runs the Southsiders, and anybody knows anything about American prisons know that the Mexican mafia are like the top fucking. They're the top gang. They're the most vicious motherfuckers. They're the most feared.
So in other
right?
words, anything
So
happens to any of their boys in there, shit goes down.
yeah, so look, so the Southsiders come right to me, the Mexican gangbangers from California, and they're like, "What's up, homeboy?" And they do the paperwork check. They want to check my paperwork, make sure I'm not a snitch, make sure I'm not a chomo, you know. So I meet them. So that's like right off the bat. And then the second thing that really helped me is I'm on the East Coast. I got Italian last name.
Yeah.
There's tons of fucking mafia guys. So all the fucking mafia guys come to me. They're like, hey, they want to know like who my grandpa is, you know, who my dad is, who my grandpa is, you know, if I got, you know, but both my dad and my grandpa were military guys.
Yeah.
You know, they were both military guys. So, you know, I tell them, but still, I'm fucking Italian. So they fucking embrace me. So, you know, I walk right on the compound. I got 25 years, and all the people on the compound, they see the fucking Mexican gangbangers who are the most vicious dudes there, you know, embracing me. And they see the mafioso dudes who are like some of the most respected dudes, you know, because of, you know, their resources on the street, you know. So I kind of walk right into this, you know, and I got 25 years. So people are kind of like, whoa, you know, because, you know, in prison, people judge you by your allies.
Yeah,
they
absolutely.
judge you by who you're around. So I'm immediately getting the respect that these guys are getting, you know. And then the other big thing that helped me and how I was able to, you know, associate with a whole lot of different people is, you know, I played sports, man. I always played sports. I've always been good at sports. You know, like I say, I'm not like a super big dude, but I'm not a small dude. I'm like at this time when I first came in, I'm probably like 6'1", 185.
Are you 6'1"?
You know, I'm 6'1", yeah.
Wow. So I'm
I mean, I'm a lot.
I'm 6'1" and 132 kilos. What's that in pounds?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. Now I weigh like 220. I'm like 225.
Yeah, so you're about
You know, so
you're about 130 kilos now, yeah?
Yeah. So I'm like 225 now. But when I came in, I was like, you know, 185.
Yeah.
You know, so you know, but I started working out. But I was always good at sports, and you know, like any, you know, male dominated, you know, alpha male society like prison is. I mean, if you can play sports good, people look up to you. You know,
Yeah.
if you're athletic, people think you can fight.
That's right.
You know, I mean, I couldn't necessarily fight. I mean, I could wrestle. You know, that's a form of fighting. But, you know, if you're athletic, people are going to be like, whoa, man, you know, just because you're athletic. And, you know, plus people come and watch you play. So when you're good. So look, a lot of times I was the only white boy running full court basketball with all the black dudes. A lot of times I was the only white boy playing soccer with the Mexicans. You know, and then like I would say, I would play softball, and, you know, a lot of white dudes play softball or, you know, volleyball. So, you know, that's how I kind of got respect for that. But also I got respect for, after I'd been in a couple years, you know, and I knew a lot of people, and, you know, I fucked with the black dudes, I fucked with the Mexicans. So then if like some of the other white people had problems with the blacks or Mexicans, they would come to me because they knew I was friendly with them because I played sports.
Yeah, you could transverse
so
between them.
I had that line of communication. So I became known as a dude like I could, you know, like a diplomat. Like I could get stuff. You know, if there were beefs, or like sometimes, you know, like there might be a new white guy come in, and somebody steals their shoes. You know, they go to commissary and buy new shoes, and somebody steals their shoes. So then like the other white dudes, they'd be like all up in arms, like, man, we're going to find out, we're going to go beat somebody's fucking ass. I'd be like, oh man, hold up. We don't need no fucking race riot. And I'd go talk to like a black dude on the unit that I played ball with. And I'd be like, yo, man, they're saying, you know, your little homeboy stole our dude's shoes, man. I'll be like, man, you need to get that back, or it's going to be repercussions.
So you're what we call here a delegate, a wing delegate, or somebody, you know, like we have one in the system here. Different nationalities have delegates, very similar situations for erasing issues or sorting out problems within the internal.
Yeah, so there's no violence, because you know anything in prison, like a lot of people think, you know, prison, it's all about the violence, but it's not all about the violence. The violence is just to solve problems. Yeah, it's about the money. And when there's violence,
everything stops.
Yeah, everything stops. No visits, no fucking drugs coming in, nothing. So, you know, most of the smart dudes that are trying to make the money, they're trying to figure out, you know, how to stop the violence. You know, a lot of people in prison spend a lot of time trying to solve beef so that violence doesn't happen. Because, you know, from being in there, when the violence does happen, it usually happens real severe and real quick. It's just like, boom. Like somebody fucking gets smashed and it's over.
And the biggest thing is,
You know,
like especially long-termers are in there to settle. They got their ways. They know what's going down. They don't want anybody to come in. I had this conversation not long ago with a guy, and it was like, he was interviewing me, and he said, oh, what's it like in there? And I said, well, look, I went in there all hot-headed in the first couple of years, and even though I knew people, I upset the apple cart, and it wasn't real good because I was aggressive to the screws. I was attacking. I was lashing out. And you know what? You can't be that guy because that upsets everybody that's settled. And when the shit's settled, things are happening. You don't realize it when you're coming off the street, but there's a lot going on underneath the fucking concrete there that people just have no idea. You come in being that guy, stepping up or fucking wanting to tell the screws, go fuck yourself. You get in arguments. They bring the squads in. They ramp. They go through. They turn everybody's cells up and down because of you. Not because of everybody, but because of you. And all of a sudden, you may think you had all these buddies, but you're on your fucking own in that yard, and people aren't happy. Yeah. And it's a very interesting thing.
They call it over here. They call that politics.
Oh yeah,
prison politics.
Oh yeah.
That's what they call it, the prison drama, and the prison politics. But yeah, I became like that sort of dude that could, move. Also, because of the sports. But another thing that I started doing is like really early in my bid, I started taking college classes. Because I like I say, education was big in my family. So
yeah,
I was always, before I got into drugs and stuff, I was always like a real good student. So in there, they offered college courses. So I started taking the college courses, and I was always in the law library, like education building, what they call the law library. And from me being in there all the time, a lot of the dudes that I played sports with and stuff, they would come in and like they would have problems, like maybe like they moved them out of their cell, or they got some bullshit, incident report, and they took their commissary and their visits, or, they wanted to prove this people, or they took their phone, for all types of different little petty reasons, right? And they would come to me, and in the BOP, the Bureau of Prisons, the federal system, they have this thing, it's called the administrative remedy process. And basically it's just like, like an inner prison, like, you can file like grievances.
So you can appeal,
against
appeal decisions.
Staff. Yeah, you file a grievance and you can appeal it. So a lot of dudes kept coming to me, because they would always see me in the law library, right? And like they were just looking for someone to help them.
So you're the
that's
jail lawyer.
Thing that I started doing. Yeah, I mean, but I never, I was never like a jailhouse lawyer, like helping people fight their cases. There were other dudes that did that, but I was like the dude that they could come, like I would file like the institutional grievances. And I became good at it, and I could, like, I won dudes back. I would win dudes back their visits. I would win dudes back their phones. I would get dudes their cells back. I would get dudes like, when you get an incident report or what they call a shot, they would take good time from you in the feds. So they would take like their days. I would win dudes back their good time. So I kind of got a reputation as doing that too. And I turned that into a hustle. At first I would just do stuff for free for dudes, but eventually I started charging. Like if somebody wanted me to write something, they would have to pay me like, 25 or $50.
Yeah.
And it became, after a couple of years, once I got a reputation and once dudes knew I was good at it, I could charge for it. So that's like another thing that kind of gave me that ability, to move, the sports. And doing that, it just gave me the ability to move throughout a lot of people. And then eventually my writing, because I started writing.
Yeah,
I started doing the books.
Yeah.
I was doing the books on like the African American gangsters. And basically I did that because when I first went in, I'm around all these mafia dudes. So I'd call my mom or my girl and I'd be like, order me books on these mafia dudes. I want to see what they're about. And the same thing, like the Colombian cocaine cartel dudes, there were a lot of them in there. And I would tell my mom or my girl, order me books on these dudes, the Colombian guys, and they would have the books. But then, like the mid 90s in this country, like gangster rap was real big, gangster rap, like 95, 94, 95, that's when all the gangster rap was coming out. So, I played ball with all the black dudes. So, I was a hip hop kid too. I like metal, but I was of that age, like NWA. That was like 1988 when I was 17.
Yeah.
Right. So I was into hip hop. So I would be in the room. I'd be like sometimes only white dude in the room with all the black dudes because I was comfortable with them because I played ball with them, and all the gangster raps coming on, and they would talk about this dude or this dude. They would name drop in the verse, and then all the black dudes, they would start talking about the dudes. And I was like real curious. I was like, because they meet these dudes out like they're Jesse James, Billy the Kid type figures.
Yeah.
And then they'd be like, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, that dude's in C block," and I'd be like, "What?" They'd be like, "Yeah, he's on the compound. He's this dude," and then I would be like, "What? This fucking dude?" And then so I would call my mom and my girl, and I'd be like, "Find me books on these guys." There
Seth,
were no
were
books.
these some of the people that you that White Boy basically talks about? Some of these hardened, leaders within
Yeah, yeah,
their
yeah,
community,
yeah,
because I think
yeah.
you identified within the documentary. I think there's 5 or 6 serious
Yeah,
players.
there's Nate Boomcraft,
Yeah,
Johnny Curry.
like
Yeah, but I mean, these
wow.
dudes I first started writing about, I mean, dudes like similar dudes like this, but from like the different cities, you know. And when I couldn't find any books on these dudes, that's when I kind of found the idea. I'm like, man, I want to start writing books about these dudes, because this time I'd been in prison, you know, about 7 or 8 years, and I was kind of, I took a lot of college classes. I got a couple of college degrees and kind of taught myself how to write, through the college courses. And I was kind of looking like, what kind of career can I have? There's not a lot of careers you can have in there, but writer was like one. So I started approaching these different dudes, and that's even like, fast forward to the White Boy thing. When I first started getting in touch with White Boy Rick, I wanted to write, because to me, I was locked up with a lot of dudes, and I was in West Virginia, and there was a lot of Detroit dudes there, and you heard all these legends about like this young white kid that was like, the plug for the black underworld, and
But was
also
there a
like
lot of negative talk in there about him as well because of the federal
yeah,
sort
yeah,
of,
no, it was
being a
like
snitch at such a young age and so many people that would
it
have
was
come
like
undone?
50-50. It
Yeah.
was like 50-50. So
Like I
it was
get
like
it.
50.
I get the beginning of it. It's not his. They just fucked him over. What they did was just wrong to a young boy. But it became a way of life. He wasn't even realizing, he's getting all this money as a
Yeah,
kid,
man.
and like fuck, what would you expect?
Yeah. I've had the argument with a lot of people, because a lot of people say like he's a snitch or he's this or he's that. But, I don't look at it like that, because his dad was an informant,
Yeah,
right?
that's right. The
His dad
guns.
was an informant. His dad was selling guns to
That's right.
people, and then, dropping a dime on them, and getting paid by the feds. And then when the crack era started jumping off, like in the mid 80s, then they were going to the feds were going to the dad. They wanted information on these drug crews. The dad didn't have any information. So, he started looking to his son, because his son, Rick, was a teenager. And Rick was, they lived on the east side of Detroit. They lived, they were like the only white people,
That was the
in
Bronx,
a
eh? It
community.
ended up being a pretty crazy place to be.
Yeah, the east side of Detroit. But he was out there playing ball and running with all the teenagers. And, teenagers talk. They
Yeah.
talk about stuff in the neighborhood. So Rick knew everything that was going on in the neighborhood. So what the Fed started doing, Rick was giving the information. They were paying the dad money. And, Rick would give, the dad would give Rick, $20 or $30. And then they would file all the information under the dad's informant number.
Gotcha.
So that's how that whole thing started. And then when it
Right.
came out, then when they got the Curry brothers from Rick's information and they took them to trial, it started coming out like, who's the informant? And they were saying the dad, and the Curry dudes, they weren't buying it. They were like, we don't do no business with the dad. So as soon as the feds felt like they were getting close to who the informant was, like it was going to come out that they were using underage informant,
Just cut them
they
off.
kind of like, yeah, cut him off, kicked him to the curb.
Yeah.
And then, he eventually got busted because they made him a drug dealer. He just kept selling drugs, and plus Johnny Curry, that was the biggest drug dealer. He was gone. So he kind of just took his place.
A massive impact in the industry back then, really, hey, and it's a part of American history, really, within the criminal sort of true crime. That was huge play there from all parties, wasn't it? And here you were now successful from, and we'll talk about this shortly, but just on the back end of the jail, having that ability to be able to be in there and have firsthand, I guess I appreciate that, because with the Clink, the people that I have on the Clink are people like yourself, the people. I'm not going third hand to, Dave or Michael, and they're telling me this story. I'm blessed to have that person. That person, was the bank robber. That person who, escaped from a maximum security prison in a helicopter. These are the people who are here on my podcast. So you telling your stories, they're all firsthand from your experience, which is so powerful.
Yeah, no, definitely, man. That's why I came on, because it was called the Clink.
You're a legend. You are an absolute legend. I can't help but, and I know that you've got so much more coming, and I know, and it's hard because in Australia, everything's fucking delayed. You know what I mean? Like, it'd be so hard getting your books. It'd be so hard, getting that next release of that short movie that you're doing and shit like that, where we won't get it till another year or so. But I've got you here now, and I want to know more. What can we talk about? I know there's things that are coming up. Let's talk about your books. Let's talk about, the coming through the end of that 20, because you served 21 years, didn't you?
Yeah, 21, yeah.
That's just huge. That is huge. What does someone do?
I published my first book in 2005. First I started writing for magazines. I started writing for Vice. I was doing a column for Vice in the early 2000s, and I was writing for these other magazines called Don Diva and Feds, which are kind of like the outlaw Bible gangster magazines, that tell a lot of the, like the tales about the dudes that are embedded in the lyrical lore of rap, and so eventually I put my first book out, Prison Stories, in 2005, which it was kind of autobiographical, but I fictionalized it. It was about, basically like my first 2 years in prison and like what was going on, when I was hanging out with because I spent a lot of time with the Southsiders, the Mexican gangbangers, and they were kind of controlling like the heroin trade on the compound. So I kind of got involved in that a little bit, my first 2 years, to make some money. And yeah, then I started doing the books on the gangsters. Like my second book was Street Legend Volume 1, and that featured like some of the most infamous, African American gangsters on the East Coast, like Pistol Pete, from the Bloods. He was like a big blood leader. Kenneth Supreme McGriff, who was the leader of the Supreme Team. Wayne Perry, who was like the infamous Washington D.C. hitman. Boy George, who was like a Puerto Rican, drug dealer who made a lot of money before he was 20, and in the Bronx. And this other dude, Anthony Jones, they called him AJ, who was like this dude. Like they used to wear the president's mask, like that movie Point Break.
Yeah, and rob the banks.
Yeah, but they used to wear the mask, and they used to go commit murders with the masks on.
Oh wow.
Like they would go do hits and stuff. So he was this big drug dealer from Baltimore. But all these dudes that I wrote about, like they're all doing life. And
you got to actually speak to them firsthand, Seth, and hear it from them.
Yeah, not every single one, because some of them were in different prisons.
Sure.
But like I was with Kenneth Supreme McGriff, and what I would always do is I would try to write them through my wife. I would get my wife to write them, and then we just write back and forth. But then a lot of times I would talk to like their co-defendants or their homeboys, or sometimes like their cousins. So I will always get as close to the source as I can. But usually some of them, they didn't mind what I did, but they didn't want to make any comments, because they were still fighting their case.
Yeah.
They were still fighting their case, so they wouldn't say anything directly to me, but they would kind of bless me and say like their co-defendant could talk about it, or their cousin or something like that. But
I noticed that there was a thing too, just that I seen that it stated about your content within your books, that there was no room for error, because if you were talking out of school or writing something that wasn't fact, there was only one way, and that was a shank. You know what I mean? If it came back on you.
Yeah. No, you couldn't misquote people. I mean, I was writing in there. I was with these dudes, so. And some of these dudes were powerful dudes, even in prison. If they didn't like what I wrote, they could have like sent a hit on me.
Yeah.
So, a lot of times what I would do is I would send the manuscripts to them. Like after I wrote it, like I would send the manuscripts to them, or I would get their co-defendant, or even, like their trusted friend or brother on the street or something. I would get them to read it, and I'd be like, man, is this cool? If something's not cool, let me know. But also what I would do too is, because a lot of writing is real exploitive, and it's almost like they try to put cases on people. They try to speculate about this murder or that murder. So I never wrote like that. I would write like within the code. If a court document said something or the newspaper said something, I would say what they said, but I wouldn't like speculate and be like, oh yeah, I think this dude probably killed this person, even if I knew if he killed him or not. I couldn't say that.
Yeah.
So I would keep my writing within the code, and that kind of gave me a lot of respect in there. People respected that. But yeah, you could have misquoted somebody, because if you misquoted somebody in there, they're gonna do it themselves, or they're gonna send somebody at you, and you're gonna get a shank in the back. So it ain't like you see all the time out here, like writers, writers and their subjects, and the subjects like he misquoted me. So I had a little bit of different environment, so I would have to let the dudes like actually read what I wrote to make sure they were cool with it before I put it out.
I think that, though, for yourself must have been comforting, knowing that once you got that green light from these guys, that you were doing something that was actually really powerful, respectful, and also, something that is going to work, that you can release and put out to the public for people to read. You don't have to worry about that looking over your shoulders because you've told stories that aren't true. It is all what it is. And, the proof's there, because now, how many books are you into now?
I got 22 books out.
And let me ask, were you one of the first prison authors?
I mean, there was dudes before me, but I've had people say that I'm probably the most prolific prison author. I mean, that's been said about me.
And
I don't know. I mean,
are you allowed to make money in America from, for example, someone doing 25 years? You educate yourself, you become very good at writing. You then able to make these books available. Were they being sold whilst you're also in custody?
Yeah, this is how I got around that, because they would say no, because like as a prisoner, I'm not allowed to make money.
Proceeds of crime.
I'm not allowed to run a business.
That's
right. So this is what I did. I gave power of attorney. I would write the books, and then I would give power of attorney to my wife, and my wife would put the book out. So it's the same thing, right? And this used to piss them off. This pissed the fucking prison people off. They would get, the prison administrators, they would get so fucking mad at me, right? But they couldn't say shit, because look, somebody could go to prison and they could own a house, or they could own a car, and they can't get on the phone and, conduct business with, and try to sell the car, or even conduct business with a real estate agent, because in prison, you can't run a business and you can't conduct business.
No.
That's the rules, right? But if you own a house, you can give power of attorney to someone else to sell your house. And people had done that, right? So once I figured that out, right, then I was like, okay, when I write a book, this is my intellectual property, So I'm giving power of attorney to my wife to sell my intellectual property.
So what she does with it, it's her choice. You're just passing it on.
So, and they got rules in there that say I'm allowed to write. I got the First Amendment right to write. Yeah, so that's how I did it. Like any contractual stuff, my wife would do it. So I would just write it, and I would get power of attorney. And like all these dudes, every different prison I went, they would try, like the administrators, like they got the dudes in prison, they call them SIS. It's like the Special Investigative Services. It's basically like the FBI in prison.
The internal
like
squad.
Investigate the drug.
Yeah.
So these dudes, every time I come to a new prison, and they would like call me in, and they'd have like a little sit down, and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, we know you're the fucking writer guy. Well, you ain't running a business. You're not conducting a fucking business here. You're not getting any of that. You're not getting no proceeds. Blah blah blah." And I would just be like, "Oh, okay." And so I'd whip out, I'd have like a little folder, and I'd whip out the fucking power of attorney shit, and I'd be like, "Check this out, man." I'd be like, and I'd whip out like the policy, right, that says I can write. So I'd whip that out, and I'd be like, "Look, according to your fucking regulations, I'm allowed to write."
So they couldn't stop you sending out your written, stories or anything like that. They couldn't. Did they fuck with it at any time? Did you find that they were fucking with your mail and trying to block you and shit?
They used to put me under investigation. Like if I really wrote something that pissed them off, they would put me under investigation, like for bullshit. Like, dude, I was under investigation for like smuggling drugs, smuggling tobacco, just all types of bullshit. They would just make shit up and put me in the hole.
I was gonna say, you go to Segro? Yeah, Segro, what we call Segro.
Dude, I was in the hole one time for 6 months. 6 months under investigation. And what they got to do to justify it, like when they put you under investigation, it can only be for 3 months, right? And then they got to charge you or not charge you. So what they did, it's like they put me under investigation for 3 months for fucking one bullshit, and then they put me under investigation for 3 more months for some other bullshit. So they kept me on ice for 6 months. But you know what I did? I fucking flipped it on them. I wrote a fucking book while I was in the hole for 6 months.
You're the fucking king. You are the king, brother.
Yeah.
Honestly, it just goes to show how powerful education is, though. And I think that that's something that, I think if our listeners out there can take anything from today's interview with yourself, is how you educated yourself, Seth, to be better than the next person who didn't want to educate themselves, to find a better way. I mean, I just, in my head, I'm sitting here and I'm processing 21 years. 25 years as a head sentence, but to serve 21 years, it's a big chunk of your life gone, and yet you didn't dwell on it. Well, I'm sure there's times there where you did, but, you didn't let it own you. You chose to find a better way to, come out. And I mean, that's a long light, brother, to be looking at. There's so much in that time that can happen and change. You don't know. Every day is a different day.
Yeah, man, I just kept it moving. Look, I mean, not really in the beginning of my bid. The beginning of my bid, I was more, concerned with like establishing myself, establishing my reputation, because I knew I had a lot of time to do,
Yeah.
and I wanted to do easy time as opposed to hard time. But once I felt like I established myself after like 6 or 7 years, and I had a bunch of allies, and dudes saw that I wasn't no grimy dude and stuff like that, and I had people that would look out for me, then I spent every day, every day I wake up, I can be like, what can I do today that's going to help me in my future when I get out? So I would spend every day like thinking about, what I could do. That's how like the writing started. That's how the education started. I was really, really forward thinking, because even though I had a shitload of time, like I went in young, dude. So I knew,
Yeah, you
I
did.
was 22.
Yeah.
I was like, man, I'm going to be out in my 40s, I'm still going to have time. It's not like I'm going to get out. I'm going to be, 60 or 70, So I knew that. So I was like, and plus, I mean, too, prison can preserve, prison eats some motherfuckers up, like the dudes that are into drugs and gambling and always owing people money and always chasing drugs. Prison can eat you up, but prison can preserve you too. So, I feel like really preserved, and even now, like, look, I've been out 7 years. I always say, like, I learned in prison, like they always said, like when you go in, you stop aging mentally. So I went in at 22, and I've been out 7 years. So now, really, I feel like I'm 29.
7 years. So you're you're at 2014.
Yeah.
Yeah, I got out.
I got out August.
I got out May 2014.
Yeah, I got out August 2014.
Wow. And you're actually coming up to your anniversary, if I can call it that, in July.
Yeah.
How do you find that?
That's not like something I would. Really, I don't even give it any thought. Like, I think, okay, yeah, I got out, but it's not. I wouldn't say that's like an anniversary. Like when I talk about anniversary, like, when I married my wife in prison in 2005.
Yeah, respect that.
When I met my wife, June 11th. I just passed the anniversary when I met my wife. I met my wife June 11th, 1993.
Yeah.
Before I went in. So, those are like the anniversaries, and then the typical ones, like birthday, wedding, when I met my wife, so that's kind of, what I think of.
I totally agree. And it's something that I've been asked, and hence me wanting to ask you, is because, like people say, oh, it's coming up to that date, or it's that time, how are you feeling? You've been out for so long. It's like, I don't go back and wait for that date to come around to go, fuck, it's another year I've been home. It's not something that you ponder on.
I don't celebrate that,
No.
like I say, I expect to be home, I don't do anything, I don't do anything. I'm not doing anything like I'm trying to get away with anything, I'm doing everything legit.
Yeah.
And like I say, since I've been out, I've had some highs, I've had some lows, not everything has gone according to plan all the time. I'm like anybody, especially anybody, if you're like, artist type person, or if you're doing writing, or if you're making stuff, or you're doing anything in entertainment, man, you got highs and you got lows. Sometimes I've been frustrated, sometimes I've wanted to give up.
You talk about entertainment, Seth, and the thing is, you're also a producer too, yeah?
I think, film to me is like, I was a writer in prison. I wrote a bunch of books. and film to me is kind of like the next logical step, like in the evolution as a writer. So, I came out with that in mind. Yeah, I wanted to get into film, that was my goal. And I did some stuff on YouTube when I first got out, called the Easter Bunny Assassin, just like some little crazy web series. It's on YouTube, like some farcical kind of hitman shit. And that was like really guerrilla style. So that was like my first taste of like filmmaking. And then eventually I hooked up with Sean Reck and Transition Studios, and I threw the White Boy Rick idea at him, because I'd written about White Boy Rick in his case, for Vice, The Fix, Vice News, a couple of different publications, like while I was still in prison, actually. So I met Sean Reck like around 2015, and I actually interviewed him. He had this documentary out called Murder in the Park, which was on Showtime. So I interviewed him for Vice, to promote that. And Vice actually didn't even run the piece, but I formed a relationship with him, and he was a true crime, documentary writer, and he kind of got into my background, and he was kind of intrigued. So, he actually flew me up. His studio is based out of Cleveland. He actually flew me up there, and he was like, because I told him I wanted to do film stuff. So he was looking for his second documentary. So he's like, what kind of ideas you got? So I started throwing ideas at him, and White Boy was probably like the fourth or fifth idea, that I threw at him. I was trying to do some more, criminal justice reform, like prison based, stuff. And when I threw the White Boy at him, at the same time they were doing the Hollywood movie was in production, White Boy Rick with Matthew McConaughey. So
Yeah, yeah.
as soon as he heard that, man, he was like, you can get White Boy Rick. I was like, yeah, that's my dude. I can get White Boy Rick. So he was like, let's do this. And like even at the beginning, like he discussed like, some type of compensation for like access, like basically like, like he would buy my idea from me, but I was kind of like, I was like, you know what? I go, I just don't want to, take some type of compensation. I was real forward thinking. I said, look, man, I go, I want to learn how to make documentaries, I said, I want you to, kind of mentor me. Because this dude, when I went to his office, I found out he cut his teeth. He did like 200 Crime Stopper shows, for like all the networks before he did his
Here's
first
your
documentary.
mindset. Here's your mindset again.
Yeah.
Not worrying about the dollar, but about how to best educate yourself to be able to be the best you can be at what you want to do. You blow my mind.
Yeah.
You really do.
Yeah.
And I just think that it's fucking so valuable what you're saying.
Yeah. So look, what I did when I walked in his office, right? I immediately noticed this dude got like 9 Emmys. It's not national Emmys, it's all regional Emmys, Ohio, that he won in Ohio, but it's for all his Crime Stopper shows that he did. He did like 200 Crime Stopper shows and he won 9 Emmys. So I'm like, man. And then I talked to this dude and I'm like, man, this dude knows what the fuck he's doing. So, that's what I said. I said, man, this is a deal I want to make. I said, I want you to fly me in for all the shoots. I want you to walk me through the whole process. I want you to basically let me ride shotgun with you as you make this documentary. And I said, I'll give you all the access and you can base it all off of my work. So we made that deal. And like I said, man, it was the dude taught me so much, man. I learned so much from Sean Reck, and he basically taught me how to make documentaries. He would fly me in. Look, this dude was so cool. He would fly me into the shoots. We would do the shoots and he would have his camera team and he would sit in the director's chair and he would interview the subjects. And then like at the end, he would like turn to me and he would give me like 5 minutes to be the director.
Wow.
And he would like he would let me like sit in the direct. He'd like, go ahead, man. So he was like, he was like really cool, like gave me all his knowledge and basically
there's no monetary value on that, is there? That's priceless.
Oh,
like somebody
no.
giving you that opportunity in life. It's fucking amazing. I absolutely just sit back and I love it. I love what you represent. I love where you've come from. And, when's the Seth Ferrante movie coming out? When are we going to see your fucking full story?
Yeah, see, I've had some interest, and I've talked to people, about different stuff, but I'm like, I think it's too soon. I feel like right now I'm in like the beginning of the third act.
Yeah, fair call. Fair call.
Yeah, because
Yep.
I've taken that knowledge that I got from Sean Reck in writing and producing White Boy with them, and now I'm doing my own stuff. I got one documentary that's almost ready that hopefully it'll be out by this fall. I got to find a home for it. We're going to go to a sales agent like probably this month or in July, and we're going to try to license it somewhere or sell it to somewhere. But it's called Nightlife, and it's a St. Louis story, and it's about North St. Louis. There's this area here in North St. Louis. It's like real violent, a lot of drugs, a lot of gangs. It's basically North St. Louis is why St. Louis is like perennially in the top 5, murder capital of the United States.
Wow, that's
So
huge.
yeah, so I follow this guy. His name's Reverend Kim McCoy. He's like a preacher for this AME Zion Church, but he takes it a step further. Like he has this group, it's called Nightlife, and they're basically violence interrupters. But what they do is they go walk the streets from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. on Thursday, Friday, Saturday nights, like in all the hot spots in North City. And so his thing is like he always says, he's like, I love my people more than I'm scared of them.
Yeah.
And his other thing is like he wants to he's embedded himself in the nightlife. So not only do people expect to see like the pimps, the prostitutes, the gangbangers, the drug dealers, the drug addicts, the homeless people, and the street people at night. They expect to see him walking around because he's out there. And his main thing is to keep the young kids, the young gangbangers from killing each other because he's a violence interrupter. But also what he does, like he brings water, he brings like sandwiches, he brings fruits, he brings blankets, he brings shoes, underwear, socks, and he gives it out to the drug addicts and the homeless people. He feeds them. And plus he has Narcan, so if somebody's
Somebody,
overdosing,
yeah,
he'll
give him a
give out
shot.
Narcan.
Yep.
And he tries to get people into rehab, and drug addicts into rehab, and he tries to get the homeless people into shelter. So we followed him, man, for like 2 years with like 3 cameras.
Wow,
So
that's
we
powerful.
got some crazy stuff, and it's taken a long time to edit because when I first started doing it, it was when I was doing White Boy with Sean Reck, and I was telling him, I want to do something myself, where I'm director. And he's like, look, man, he's like, I'm just going to be honest with you. He goes, you're an unproven director. Nobody's going to invest a lot of money in. So he said, you got to try to find something local, that you can, get some college kids to kind of help you film, and just get all as much footage as you can, for as little money as possible. So, I followed his advice, and that's what I did. And, it's been a long time coming because we shot most of the footage like 2016, 2017, and then I've worked with a couple different editors the last 4 years. But because we just had a ton of material, man, so we
Yeah.
just had to fashion it into a film because we didn't really have a plan. We just went out there, and I'm like, we were just shooting,
Oh, well, I tell
capturing
you what, for
footage.
anybody that hasn't seen it, they need to go and watch White Boy on Netflix because I think that it's a great insight and a really good doco. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I keep telling people, it's something that you need to be seen. And I want to ask you something, Seth, because you would know firsthand, and you just talk about spending 2 years following the Reverend around. How are things in America at the moment? I mean, we see over here, the vulnerability, the street, the the homelessness, the drugs are at an all-time high, the crime, and like, I get it. We here have an epidemic with the ice, but it's nothing like what you guys are going through over there. We have homeless here, obviously, but I've seen footage, LA, and my mate that was, like I said to you, living over there with the cannabis. I seen a footage, and he's just driving down the blocks, and just tense, and drug addicts. And
Yeah.
I try to process that in my mind because it's hard to see, hard to believe. And I mean, you seeing that firsthand with the Reverend, how did you find it? And is it worse than ever?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's fucked up. The one, I mean, everything in this country, I mean, it's racial lines and it's class lines, and it's the haves and the have-nots, and the people that got money got a lot of money, and the people that don't have money don't have anything. So, you know, I mean, it's fucked up because I grew up in this country, like thinking, the American dream, land of the free, home
Free.
of the brave.
Mm.
and you kind of see, how fucked it up it is, man. It's just, I mean, it's really fucked up. Like even in St. Louis, they got this place like called the Delmar Divide, right? And it's like north of the Delmar Divide are like the poor, people of color communities, and south of the Delmar Divide are like, the rich white communities. And it's crazy because you see there's like in the white communities, there's like a really heavy, police presence, because money's being made
So they're
and people are spending money.
protecting the white people and
The
their interests.
businesses,
Yeah.
but I mean, yeah, it's the white people, but it's also like the property, the business, because the stuff is worth more money.
Sure.
Right. And then you go north, and it's like north of Delmar, and it's like the property values decline, and like they're selling drugs, they're killing people. And like it's like a block apart.
Wow.
And it's like what is wrong with the police? Because that's a directive. That must be the directive from the higher ups in the police department. Like we're going to protect where the money's at and where the money's not at. I mean, because this is like America is the most capitalist country in the world, and that's what capitalism about. It's about the money. But I think what we have in this country right now is it's really like the dark underbelly of capitalism is like ruling. Because I think in some ways, capitalism can be good because, I mean, this is the type of country where you can come to this country with nothing and you can make your fortune. I mean, that's possible. I mean, it doesn't happen to everybody. It's kind of like maybe winning the lottery, but it does happen. And it's harder in a lot of other countries to do stuff like that. So, that's a good side of capitalism, but really it's like the bad side of capitalism is running this country right now. And it's kind of like, to people like me who grew up and who were proud to be American, it's kind of just crushed like this whole thing that we're brought up to believe, like an American dream and stuff like that. Cause you just see the reality and you're like, man, that's one reason why I made this film Nightlife, because I just can't imagine, imagine being like you're an 11 or 12-year-old kid in some of these communities of color and you feel like you need a gun for protection, man.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy. These kids, they're like kids, man.
And it's a split second decision. They're not going to think about consequences at that age. It's just going to be fuck you, man. Boom.
But just to think that they feel like they need a gun for protection when you're 11. I could not imagine when I was 11. Maybe when I was 11, I might have been, scared, like I might have to get in a fight or somebody might beat me up or something, but I wasn't afraid, like I needed a gun, like somebody was going to shoot me.
Yeah.
So I just think that's crazy. So, I mean, really this country has a long way to go. I think recently, like with Black Lives Matters and all the police brutality, being, publicized, and the kind of Black Lives Matters movement going national, international.
Sure.
I think a lot of the stuff, it's been more exposed now. And that's the first part of change, you got to expose it. And like movies like we did with White Boy, where we exposed like the police corruption. But I mean, there's a lot of corruption in this country, from law enforcement to like the political stuff to like the corporate stuff. I mean, you look at like the opioid crisis, I mean, these people are the biggest drug dealers ever. And they, I tell people all the time, you could take all the drug dealers that I was locked up in federal prison with, all of them, and we didn't make a smidgen of the money
the pharmaceutical companies.
That these pharmaceutical companies have made.
Yep.
These people, like, they don't even go to prison. They just pay like $5 billion fines.
Yep.
So I'm saying right now, our country it's just, they want to show to the world, like we're this, the base of democracy and all this, but really our country's corrupt as fuck right now. I mean, I was saying, are there other countries that are more corrupt? Yeah, there's other countries more corrupt, because there's countries that they'll just fucking kill you for fucking talking bad about them. And I don't think the government's going to come kill me because I'm talking about them here. So it's a little different, but it's still it's
America is one big motherfucking country, brother, and that's the thing. For corruption, you're talking about other countries with they're rife with corruption and so on. Yeah, but they're a portion of America. America is huge. America, look, I can never come there. It's as simple as that. They'll never let me there because I have firearm gang related charges and importation. It's just I'll never ever get there. You know, but then again, I look at it and think, oh, who's going to get anywhere for some time anyway? So, I mean, I get to talk to you, Bart, and I get to have you on the Clink, and I get to share your story of redemption. And I'm telling you now, Seth Ferrante, that has been the most amazing opportunity for me. With all my guests, as we do come to the end of our interviews, I asked, what is one powerful statement through your lived experience, or what is something that you would leave behind, even a small piece of advice for somebody that's listening today that may be thinking about, you know, taking these lines of lifestyle or you know, just down and looking for light at the end of the tunnel. I mean, man, 21 years and you've seen that light, brother, and here you are and you're kicking some ass.
Yeah. You know what? This is what I always tell people, right? Look, I'm not the best writer. You know, I'm not the most talented filmmaker. You know, I'm not really the best at anything. You know, I'm pretty versatile. I'm good at a lot of stuff. But what I always tell people, you know, I'm not like some prodigy or some genius or anything like that. What I always tell people, my number one attribute is I'm relentless. You know, I don't give up. I keep fighting for what I want. You know, if I go one way and that way's blocked, I find another way. You know, there's always, you know, thousands, millions of different angles you can use to get what you want. So I'm the type of person, that's my number one attribute. I tell the people all the time, you know, I'm relentless, and that's why I've done what I've done, and that's why I am where I am, and that's why I'm going to keep going where I'm going. You know, because I don't give up, and I've never met a challenge, you know, that I don't think I can conquer.
Seth Ferrante, you are, to me, a very inspiring man with an amazing story of redemption. I'd love to get a hold of your fucking books, man, because it's a real hard try to get them over here. Yeah. I have tried, and I will continue
they're digital, though. I mean, they're digital.
They're
digital, too. Well, my website's sethferrante.com, SETHFERRANTI.com. So you can order my books digital or physical copies from there. I mean, we ship to Australia, but I think it's pretty expensive. I don't know the exact price, but it's probably pretty expensive to ship to Australia. Probably like $30 or something, I'm thinking. So it probably costs more to ship.
For the book.
It probably costs more to ship than the book.
It does.
But you can get them digital.
Digital's
too.
Good.
And, you know, you can see White Boy. It's on Netflix. You know, I got more films coming up. Out. I don't know exactly where they're going to be yet, but they're going to be somewhere. They're going to be available. And yeah, man. And look, I know your country is tough to get into for ex-cons, man, but I'm going to go to Australia someday. I'm going to find a way. Hey, maybe I'm going to have to get some different passport and some different name and just go. Who fucking knows?
You get your ass over here, brother. I promise you. I will host you.
Or if I can make enough money, I'll just buy some fucking property over there. Then they'll fucking let me go.
Hey, there's a loophole to everything, isn't there? You just got to fucking use that brain, brother.
If I buy some property, they're going to fucking let me in the country.
You're a good man. Seth, thank you so much. Thank you very much for sharing your story of redemption, and it's something that I will be truly proud for the future to have done with you, mate. Appreciate your time.
All right, look, appreciate you having me on the Clink, man, and good meeting you. And yeah, we can definitely, man, continue the dialogue, you know, on, you know, Instagram or whatever, man. Feel free to reach out.
For the record, I'm done trying to make y'all comfortable. For the record, you ain't trying to grow, then it's done for you. For the record, lab on me going all the way. For the record, ain't trying to link, no time to waste. For the record, yeah. For the record, yeah. For the record, yeah. For the record,